Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 312. I hesitated because I wasn't sure if I was going to say 312 or 312, but yeah, we'll go with the digits.
Numbers are stupid, never forget.
Yes. I am Peter, I'm joined as always by Matt.
Hey, what's up?
And Connor is not back, as of yet, but he will be back. He will make his glorious return.
Who's Connor?
Very good. That's a nice callback. And if you're a patron who makes Connor read something, have no fear. If he can't make it on next week's episode, he's going to actually just record his Patreon book separately with me, and I'll edit it in to make sure he's not falling behind on them. So.
Oh shit, that might just be the thing to go forward, so I don't have to sit here and listen to him.
It's only if there's it's a big gap of episodes.
Yeah, no. I just you make it, like, when you're talking Animal Man, you make it engaging, right? Like, I listen, and it might just be because it's Grant Morrison, right? Or an American Vampire I've already read. So, although we're getting to the point in American Vampire that I fell off on, when we start getting to second cycle. So,
I mean, I could look at this as some weird compliments to me, and I'm better at doing it than Connor, or I could read this as just casual shade in Connor's direction.
Well, it's a little both, because it's also the books people make Connor read are books that I don't care about. Like,
that's fair.
Deep down, I do care about Animal Man. Eventually, I'll get around to reading it, but like, the one book of his that I do want to read was when he was doing that the Soul and Snyder book, Undiscovered Country. And I would just have to tune it out because I do have the first trade that I need to get through. But yeah, making him read Harley Quinn and stuff, I just tune out. Makes the show go longer.
Well, maybe you'll be more interested when he's been forced to read the Rosmo Tim Drake book when that comes.
And that might be the best of both worlds, because I'll get to hear what's happening with Tim Drake, but I don't have to deal with the Rosmo art. So Connor's jumping on that grenade.
It's, I don't know if they do comic books for the blind, but it's the sort of one where maybe you'd buy that edition.
Oh, man.
Maybe just like an audio of someone reading the dialogue and the narration boxes for you. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a audiobook graphic novel.
Yeah. But yeah, this is a DC Comics podcast. We get together every week and we talk about the DC Comics we read. Coming up on this week's show, if I can find my tab, here it is. We're talking about Detective Comics 1061, Action Comics 1044, Robin issue 15, The Swamp Thing issue 14, Task Force Z issue 9, DC vs. Vampires Killers issue 1, and finally, Batman Catwoman issue 12, the final issue of that series, is upon us. So that is what we'll be discussing this week. I was thinking of doing a Patreon book, but I've actually got less books next week, so I'll just do them both next week. Make life easy. So that is what's coming up on the show. And yeah, not really any news this week either, bizarrely enough. But don't worry, Matt. There's always time for ComiXology Top 10.
Oof, that was a painful drawn out.
I'll make it my thing. All right, so this is the top 10 currently on ComiXology, which is now obviously part of Amazon, but it's the same deal. So we're looking at top 10, and I should also, I never really mentioned this anymore, but I should probably also point out that I intentionally, because you can select which publishers it includes, I always get rid of all the ones that I don't really recognize, just to get rid of like any like the anime, or the manga and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's just the comic book publishers that we'd expect to see. So with that said, any guesses as to what number one is, Matt?
I'm going to guess that it is an X-Men book.
It is.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, but now I have a choice between which one, because there's two. I'm gonna say it's X-Men Red number 4.
It is X-Men Red number 4. Yes, very good. So very, very good. And then, of course, number 2 is somewhat surprising, but it's kind of a special milestone issue, I suppose. And that is issue 50 of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Boom's... I think it's Boom anyway. Their Sonic series is at issue 50. So it's a special oversized issue, an $8 edition. yeah, so good for them, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So very nice. And then you have number 3 is the first DC book in the list, and it's actually Batman Catwoman issue 12.
Wow.
So
That's kind of surprising.
yeah, that's interesting. So very nice, I guess. Number 4 is Batman Beyond the White Knight. Another DC book. Number 5 is Sabretooth, which is issue 4 or 5, so that's a mini-series. That's quite high for issue 4 of a mini-series.
I'm seeing if something big happened in it, if that's why.
I don't recognize the writer, Victor Laval.
Yeah.
I'm
With
familiar with
Leonard
him.
Kirk on pencils, so I always go down and read the reviews. Someone says it's the best book the X Office is putting out, so I don't know. Huh.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah, whatever.
I mean, good for Sabretooth, I guess.
Yeah, well, I won't judge. Number 6 is X-Force, issue 29. Number 7 is Action Comics, 1044. Number 8 is Avengers, issue 57.
Mm-hmm.
Number 9 is The Variants, issue 1. This is a 5-issue mini. It's a Jessica Jones book, by the looks of it.
Ooh.
There's like multiple versions of her on the cover, hence the Variants. That's Gail Simone, by the way.
It is in Phil Noto on art, so it's got to look pretty. I might have to track this down. I do like Gail. She's a bear, you know.
I've heard that. I've heard she's a bear. Yeah. And then number 10 is Detective Comics 1061. So, I mean, 4 out of 10 ain't too bad. And there's 5 Marvel books, 4 DC, and then Sonic is that 10th book.
I'm glad Action's up there. I mean, Batman Catwoman's a final, so that makes sense why it's up there. But if Action, Tech, Beyond the White Knight's a mini.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just a case of people probably just are buying it to complete the set, even if they're not in love with it anymore. I'd say physically it's probably got a lot of nice variants, but that doesn't apply to the digital version, so...
Let's see.
That's what it is. Just looking at ahead down the rest of the list to see where the rest of the DC books fall. The DC vs. Vampires spin-off issue 1 is at number 14. 15 is Robin 15. Batman Fortress is then at 16. Task Force Z's at 18. So they're all kind of bunched up in the teens by and large. But it's not a super busy week. The sad thing here, though, is that I'm not seeing Swamp Thing anywhere particularly high on this. In fact, I'm not even seeing it on the first page, which means it's past 30. Yeah, it's number 34. That's really sad. I mean, the good news is we're getting the ending of it now, no matter what. But quite frankly, that is one of the top 3 books that DC are putting out right now.
Yeah.
So it should be better respected, and be selling better.
And this issue is basically a Green Lantern issue as well, so people should have bought it.
It kind of was. That said, though, even if you're going to buy it as a Green Lantern fan, it wouldn't make much sense if you hadn't read the rest of it.
True, but I'm just saying, this is the issue, I think. But yeah, that would be nice. I mean, we are getting the ending of it, so maybe people are just going to trade weight.
Maybe. It probably will do quite well in time, over time and trade. And I'm just noticing that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles issue 130 came out this week, and that just feels wild because I remember that starting it was like a month or two after the New 52 started. That series started, and I've read up to about issue 54 or something like that. So now there's actually more of it that I've not read than I have, despite the fact that I've read 50 plus issues, and that's kind of wild.
Yeah. Well, was that the one where there's the death of one of the 4?
Eventually there was, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if that was the...
I assume that was around issue 100, maybe, or something?
I believe so.
Yeah, something in that range. Yeah, so... It was a good series, though, what I read of it, and I do kind of intend at some point in going back and reading a lot more of it. I mean, I don't know how it fares now, because, they did eventually change the teams on it, but up until where I read it, it was pretty much the same people who were writing the book. So, very curious. It was an interesting book as well, because it was, Eastman was one of the people on it, and he was one of the original creators, and I think it's interesting to me that it did kind of read in this weird way where obviously part of you thinks, oh, the original creator is going to come in and kind of try and make it more like the original comic and kind of reject a lot of what it, the cartoon added, what maybe the original movies added. But it didn't. Like, it actually kind of embraced it and mixed it all up together. It kind of felt like, he was quite proud of all the other things that it became, and,
it seems like Eastman's kind of dialed into what the Turtles have become.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, not that you want to take from every version that's been adapted of Turtles, but it's not like the popular stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's always funny to me that Turtles started off as a parody of Daredevil. The foot instead of the hand, and it was kind of gritty. And then the cartoon got a hold of it and kind of became the pop culture version that we're all familiar with. So it's pretty cool when they can pull from all of them, and then you have something like The Last Ronin, which is like the end story, the Turtles.
And what's funny is that it may be a little debatable now with the Daredevil having a TV show, but even now I would say it still swings the other way. But certainly up until then, Turtles were by far a bigger, well-known pop culture thing than Daredevil was.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Like, because you made that foot and hand comparison, right, with the Ninja Gang, and I'm like, yeah, everyone knew who the foot was when I was growing up. No one knew what the hand was.
Well, no, and it helps that we have the cartoon and then the movie and all the toys.
Yeah,
that was my first big obsession when I was growing up. It was Ninja Turtles, and then it was Power Rangers. And then the toys usually helps out along. But yeah, man, who didn't have a couple Foot Clan action figures?
I don't know if I had any Foot Clan. I definitely had Ninja Turtles, but I don't know if I had Foot Clan.
You always get that one family member that doesn't know what to get the kid for the birthday, so they just go buy whatever's left. And it's usually Foot. That's how I ended up with 2 or 3 of them. But even as a kid, my brain was like, oh, well, that's fine. Because you never wanted copies, because you're trying to collect them. But with Foot Clan soldiers, or the robots from the cartoon, whatever they were, you can have a couple. It's like having extra putties with Power Rangers.
Oh yeah, it makes sense for the fights. You want to have a little team of them to fight. Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
But there was that, and just the fact that Elektra used a sai, and that was one of the weapons they gave Raphael. There was just a lot of these things that became bigger pop culture than Daredevil. But the reason it ended up in Ninja Turtles is because of the Frank Miller Daredevil run. It's very funny how that goes.
Yeah. It's some things just kind of get created that way. Like, most people probably don't even think about this now, but like Sonic the Hedgehog was literally created because it was like, okay, we want to have our Mario, but we have to make it different from Mario. So what is Mario? He's slow. Okay, our character's fast. Mario's a human. Okay, our character's an animal. Mario's like a plumber and whatever, so we're going to have a cool character. Like everything about him, like his shoes were based on the Michael Jackson shoes, which were popular at the time. Like everything about him was kind of like, committee researched and made. Yeah. And
for Sega.
It's almost funny that it was successful as it was, because I feel like anything that's cynical almost never works these days anymore. But I guess it was just enough at the time that it was like, okay, this kind of works. And I don't know if technically it may have been a bit too early for this, but there's definitely a little bit of Bart Simpson in that original Sonic design.
Yeah, with the kind of attitude with them too.
Yeah, but Simpsons obviously started in '89. I don't know if that's a little bit too late for it to influence Sonic.
Yeah, I don't know if I've actually played the original Sonic game. I've definitely played Sonic 2 with Tails.
Sonic 2 was better. Sonic 2 is the best one.
And then you had Knuckles introduction. That guy was fun, but yeah, no, and it's funny. It seems like Sonic right now has the pop culture ring, if you will.
It's so weird how successful those movies have become.
Hey, I'm glad. Man. My nieces love them, and I don't think they've even ever played Sonic.
Because from a video game perspective, Mario won the war. Like, Sega stopped making consoles, and now you get Sonic games on Nintendo consoles, which is, if you go back to 1992 and like tell
it's wild
video game people that, they'd lose their minds. But like Sonic games are very hit and miss. Modern Sonic games, there's a couple of decent ones, but by and large, a lot of them suck. Whereas I'm not a big Mario guy, but by and large, when Mario games come out, the fan base that likes them seems to praise them to the high heavens. So
yeah, man, the one on Wii is a lot of fun. That's the last one I played. But that's because my wife loves Yoshi. I do know in the old Super Mario World, you could bring Yoshi from level to level. The new game doesn't let you do that. She got so mad, so mad. But yeah.
Are you talking about the 2D one or Galaxy?
No, the 2D one. The
2D
one that's
one.
a side scroll. That's more traditional. That one is fun. But yeah, no. Sonic right now, I mean, issue 50 is pretty telling. And it's weird that we've never had Mario comics. Like, we had that Mario cartoon back in the 80s with Captain Lou. And then the Bob Hoskin movies.
I think Nintendo felt so hurt by how bad all the adaptations were that they're very precious now about giving their things out. It's a big deal they're making an animated movie that they're I think heavily involved in.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's just that they just don't want to give it to like a some comic publisher to potentially butcher.
True.
Might be the thing. I don't know. Maybe for all we know, maybe there's Mario comics in Japan. Maybe
it wouldn't surprise me. There's comics for everything. They also have a theme park land. Sonic doesn't have a land. Universal Japan. Yeah. Universal Japan opened their Mario land. They're opening one here at Universal Hollywood. And it looks like you're right in one of the levels of the game. They did a real good job. The Mario Kart ride. So they're doing good things too. It's not just about the movies. But yeah, we almost pulled a muscle just sitting here. That's from waking up early to go play football. Sitting.
You say fun. That. I think the actors, you're just getting old if you're pulling muscles when you're sitting down.
Yeah, it is, but going out and playing at my age does take some. And they tried to strip the ball from me and it carried my brother-in-law about 5-6 yards. You gotta go for the flag, man. That's what I told him. I'll stop, but until I hear the whistle, I'm gonna keep going. But yeah, I just tried to stretch my leg and my hamstring went, nope, you're not doing that. So if I end up on the floor screaming, guys, try not to laugh too much.
I can't make any promises.
Yes, I know.
There's too much comedy gold to be had from that, I'm afraid.
That is true.
So yeah, I mean, there's no news this week. Me and Matt sat here for about half an hour talking about Stranger Things before we started. We spared you what would be a hefty spoiler-filled tangent, which is why we talked about it off the show. But it was a very good finale. So
very good season on top of it. I think it's up there as one of my favorite seasons.
I think I'd still put 3 at first, but I think 4 is my second favorite.
Yeah, 3 is very solid, and 3 also gives Erica,
Well, Erica's in 2 as well.
Erica. Yeah, but she wasn't like a fully right.
No, but
she was. Go back and watch season 2.
Her couple of scenes in season 2 though were so popular that they upped her role. That's why they made her more of a thing in season 3.
Yeah.
They gave us Robin though as the important thing.
Robin, Steve. Season 2 to give us Steve as the babysitter.
Yeah.
But yes, go watch that if you haven't. If you're listening to us right now, God bless the spoilers because I've already seen people can't handle their stuff. Which I was kind of glad when the first part of the season came out during a very busy weekend.
That no one could spoil the ending.
Yeah, like we had Top Gun out, Double or Nothing was going on, everything in my nerd sphere. And now this was the only thing, and people are already going out there and, trying to talk around it. Let people, not everybody rushes out. I mean, these 2 episodes combined were like 4.5 hours, almost. Right? Am I doing my math right?
You added on an extra half. It's about 4.
Okay, it's about 4 hours.
90, episode 8 was 90 minutes, and episode 9 was 2.5, pretty much.
So, not everybody has that to commit. So let's chill with the spoilers, everyone.
I wasn't.
Let people enjoy things.
I thought I was going to take a break for like an hour in between to like whatever, but as soon as I finished episode 8, I'm just starting it. I'm going straight in.
I took a break to make some coffee because I was up from 3:45 yesterday, and once that coffee was made, the episode started.
Yeah. So
let's just say there's certain parts in that final episode where coffee helps, and there's other parts where you're like, oh, why did I drink this? I'm not going to sleep okay. So
Yeah, it was a good time. But anyway, we'll get into comics then, shall we? We will begin with Detective Comics 1061, which is written by Mariko Tamaki and Nadia Shammas, with art by Ivan Reis. So this is the final issue of this run, of this arc. We're starting a new team next issue, and this wraps up the storyline with what the Riddler's up to, and the various characters, Donovan's daughter, Caroline, all that stuff comes to a head. And I'd say the issue, like, I enjoyed most of it quite a bit. I think it's got some fun moments. I like some of the kind of like the hard hitting stuff towards the end with Deb, kind of like, my daughter's like made these choices and I have to kind of like live with that, and Batman tries to console her, and it has a good feeling to it. I will say there's a little bit of confusion I have about some of the explanation in the middle that, like, I actually don't know after reading this, because it brings up the tower, right? Arkham Tower. And it brings up that all these victims, or all the people who were doing these crimes over the course of this arc, were in a support group with Chase Meridian. And there's a bit of narration from Batman that kind of makes it sound like he thinks Chase Meridian might be in some way responsible or a villain, but then it's never brought up again. And I actually don't know if Chase, if it was just happens, like, she brought them all together, but they themselves went on to,
It was, they were all part of this, like, of a group where they were trying to process guilt over something.
Yeah, it was a group therapy session that we're going through. Yeah.
And it was through that guilt is how Riddler was able to manipulate them into doing things. But then it also turned out that Caroline was almost above the guilt, whereas it was very confusing. I wasn't following her thread very well.
It was very convoluted in its logic, and I think that was a bit of a disappointment. It kind of hurt what it was doing.
And it doesn't help that this feels truncated. This felt like they were putting in a bunch of exposition that, if it was doled out over, let's say, 5 issues instead of 3, it might have been a little bit more clear. So I wonder how much of that is the creative team coming in.
Yeah, maybe they were given, like, you have to get this done by issue, 1061, and that's what you've got.
And then something that I learned in film school and in writing classes, where you don't introduce something new in the 3rd act, and now all of a sudden Talia is being introduced in dealing with the Riddler. Is she's also part of this scheme, which I wasn't following.
Well, Talia was seen before this in the arc.
She was?
Yeah, like Batman traced something to her like 2 issues ago.
Oh, shoot, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So what happens when you read too many comics.
No, Talia did come up before now, and in the arc.
Okay, well then, I take back what I said. That's on me. But yeah, I didn't remember Talia.
That said, though, I do kind of admit it's like an extra layer that it doesn't really need. It just adds, an extra. I think it's juggling a little bit too much, and it does feel quite convoluted when it's explaining stuff.
Yeah.
Because the Batman's narration when he's saying, "Oh, Chase Meridian is the key," the envelope like explained it to him, and I'm like, how did the envelope explain it to you? I don't understand. Like, you have to...
everything that we know about her is that she was his eyes in the tower, right?
Yeah, Chase was working for, well, not working directly for Batman per se, but she was hired by Bruce to do a good job, and there was never a hint in the tower that she was anything other than a good character who was caught up in all this shit.
Also, one of the people in the group was the doctor responsible for the tower. His older sister. That was another layer that I was just like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
there's way too much exposition going on here.
Yeah, that felt like why have we added that?
Yeah. Dr. Ware. There we go.
Yeah, Dr. Ware.
It was Dr. Ware's sister, and then I mean, I do love the idea of Riddler masterminding this and keeping his hands clean, because technically he never does anything.
No,
right? He just sends out the riddles, and then these people, it's their guilt that drives it. And just the idea of Caroline being kind of a crooked judge, right? And that was her guilt, because she wouldn't talk in the group about why she was in the group. And Meridian's like, that's fine, but it ends up being she feels guilty for, kind of letting things slide that maybe she shouldn't have in Gotham. And
yeah, she talks about how when she eventually killed someone, it was actually like a relief, because now instead of worrying that she's responsible for death, she knows she is. So it's a comfort that she's just done it. honestly, yeah, like the more I'm thinking about it, the more the plot is this convoluted thing that really falls apart at the end. What I did like when it's like Batman has to go and save Chase Meridian and her, because they're both on like the scales of justice at the statue, and I love that Cass shows up to help. They kind of just gloss over that, I mean, Cass clearly saves Chase, but like we never get like after all the stuff that came up before, I was really expecting like a scene where Batman or maybe even just Cass like asks Chase a couple of questions just to clear up like her involvement, and like was she like knowingly involved in any of this, or was it this is just how everyone else met and then she became a victim by being there kind of thing. So that was a little bit weird.
The way that I read it though is like she put that group together because that was her job, right? As a psychologist and someone that's running this Arkham Tower for rehabilitation. And so maybe that's how she's responsible, is like this whole scheme wouldn't have happened if she didn't put all these people in the same room. But I don't think this is some masterminded, Chase as a
I don't
agent.
think so either.
Like it's just, but it's like you said, convoluted.
Yeah.
Needlessly elaborate.
Yeah. Well, once it gets to just the saving people, the action scene's fun and well drawn. And I do like the scene between Batman and Deb. But everything to get is there is pretty convoluted. It's it's sad to say. But it's a very mixed bag of an ending. It does kind of feel like they had to squeeze in so much of their ideas into maybe like just 2 less issues than they actually needed. If they'd be able to spread it out over more and kind of properly establish a lot of the things that we're doing. But like you say, there's so much just to kind of explain very quickly. That it doesn't, and none of it feels like anything none of it feels organic in a way. It's like, oh, that all makes sense. All it does is raise more questions that aren't really addressed.
Right, and that's where I kind of was waiting for the Riddler to be like, yeah, isn't that the ultimate riddle, Batman? Like that it was kind of, it should have been less explained, right, instead of more explained. But yeah.
So yeah, it's a bit of a whimper, sadly. I do wonder if like just being constrained into however many issues was the problem, but it's kind of this weird add-on to Tamaki's run, because it kind of feels like you could easily probably just ignore this last arc and have the tower be the ending of the whole thing, which is for the long run is probably for the better. Right. But there's a co-writer on this arc, which obviously kind of already slightly separates it, and maybe that's part of the issue here. That could be that, but so, which is maybe why it's like, okay, some of these ideas are pretty good, but maybe it's the execution, and that maybe is more on the script writer than it is where the stories are coming from. But
true.
I never read the backup.
So just this is again, Gotham Girl feels like it's Chase that set this all up for the death of her friend, and so Huntress comes in and saves Dr. Meridian from Gotham Girl, and there's a fight, and I forget Gotham Girl's origin, how she got powers, but she's basically a Kryptonian without the Kryptonian weaknesses, right? She's shooting lasers from her eyes. Huntress is trying to evade her. And then Dr. Meridian ends up being able to kind of ground her using some, therapy techniques. And Gotham Girl is blaming her for all of this. And come to find out that it was someone else that had access to Dr. Meridian's computer, and that she was the one that wanted to basically pin everything on Gotham Girl because she can't be trusted because she's crazy and has superpowers. And it kind of gets into the stigma of like mental health and whatever, which is a really nice sentiment to go. It kind of gets messy. And so when Gotham Girl finds out it was this other person that works at the Arkham Tower, she flicks her ear off, like, with her super strength. And they're like, well, no, you can't do that. So she goes up, like almost to like punish herself. She goes up to the upper atmosphere where there's no air, and then kind of falls back on, and she compares it to being on medication for her for her mental stuff, and that when you're up there and you're not thinking about anything, that's when you feel free, but there's always a come down. So she ends up back in the ruins of Wayne Manor. Huntress shows up there and brings her some dinner, and they just get talking about how Gotham Girl's really powerful, but she's strong because she puts herself out there, and that's something that Huntress really can't do, and that she's still here, that no matter what everyone says about Gotham Girl still shows up. And it's this really nice sentiment that that you still made everything right for your friend even though you didn't have to. And then come to find out that Talia is kind of the one that put this into going, like the whole website and Dr. Meridian and all this other stuff. She kind of put that plan into play because she wants Gotham Girl to become her own personal Superman. So Talia is definitely up to some things in the pages of Detective Comics. Will Ram V pick up those threads? I have no idea, but we'll see.
Maybe whatever Tamaki's doing next is going to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not that she wrote the backup.
This is Sign of Grace. Yeah. But I will say the art by Dave Lapham is really good. There's this page at the end where you can, it's got Huntress and Gotham Girl talking, and it goes from it closes up on Gotham Girl's fist and then Huntress's hand on top of it, and then just it's kind of cut off, but the story is told in the eyes, where it's Gotham Girl looking like, oh, finally someone understands me, and it's really nice. And then Lapham's Talia looks great, very clean lines. Puts the colorist is working because it's all, she's in one of her temples, but she's in this super green, dress with designs on it, and it really stands out. But yeah, it was okay. I feel like this might read better altogether. Like this was almost like if they'd done an annual size something, or like a Gotham Girl special.
If you take the 3 part backups and put them together, yeah.
Yeah, it might have been just better as one full story instead of trying to seed this out. But it was kind of doing something similar with the Meridian story, which I thought was weird. Like you would think the editors would have had them change something, which again makes me believe that the main story was supposed to go a little bit longer, right? But who knows at this point?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. What are you giving the book then?
So the main story I'm going to give a 6, and the backup I'm going to give a 6.5. So we'll just say Detective Comics itself is a 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give the main story probably a 6 as well. It's just a bit of a shame because I do think the action once we get to the because the actual paneling and the sequencing of both Batgirl and Batman jumping down to grab the victims on the statue, I think that's really well paced out and a really good action scene. I mean, it's Ivan Reis on art, so he knows what he's doing. But sadly, it's just too convoluted as an ending to the story to be that satisfying. But hey, there you go. That's Detective Comics. Action Comics 1044, Philip K. Johnson writing with Riccardo, Federici, and Will Conrad on the art. So
wasn't expecting a tie-in to No Justice, I'll tell you that much.
I mean, it's using something from No Justice to explain something. I don't know if tie-ins maybe.
Tie-in's not the word.
Yeah.
Not thinking that Philip K. Johnson's going to go back that far.
Well, it does just say a few months ago when No Justice was happening, and I'm like, wait, that's only a few months ago in continuity? Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah. Time.
Yeah, for the record, I can tell you that was early 2018 when it actually came out. So,
I remember. But yeah, so we get to see where the orphan came from, which was again a little bit reminiscent of Superman, which I like that Philip Kennedy Johnson's doing. Is he's given these, I don't call him a villain because he's not, but these antagonists almost similar origins to Clark, and just saying why Clark is the way that he is. But But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, and it seems like the Genesis energy has been staring us at the face all the time. That comes from the source. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so the backstory of the orphan is that his parents were on a ship investigating the source wall when all that was going on, but when it broke and shattered, they everyone on the ship was basically killed, and they realized they were about to die. And it's this kind of heartbreaking scene because they kind of treat this this robotic dog as kind of this part of the family, and they're kind of nice to it. They call it Darling. And then when Mongol and his forces come and investigate this, it turns out this robot dog has effectively become self-aware and incorporate, as they put it, assimilated the pregnant mother to save the fetus when she was pregnant, and now has this baby in a sort of incubation jar. And that's kind of how the orphan still exists. It's a baby in a jar, although it's smart and can speak now. It's this thing
because of the source energy.
Yeah. So it can teleport. In fact, the pyramid, which is the orphan cube, or not the orphan cube, the orphan box, I should say.
Yeah, the orphan box. Which, again, this New God stuff had kind of been staring us in the face from the beginning. So I like that he dropped this here. That the Genesis energy is kind of source based, and that's why it is an orphan box instead of a mother box.
Yeah. So that can teleport them, but it's not very accurate. And they want the help of the orphan to try and go and help Enchantress and sort of win this war. And they're like, well, we need more Genesis energy. That piece that's on Earth that you had, we're going to kind of need that. So that actually kind of brings in. So what's interesting, and I did read the backup for this because the backup is very much part of the main story. It's just the characters on Earth get their own story in the backup instead of being incorporated.
It definitely felt like the back section of the same story.
Yeah. So they come up with this plan, and we get a sweet scene where Clark interacts with two of the Thelosian children, where they're looking at some of the toys or puzzles that Clark is making, and he explains to them, because at first they're kind of like, oh, sorry, we weren't trying to steal anything. He's like, oh, it's okay. And he explains that this was something that he made for John to try and give him a piece of his heritage. And that he was thinking about giving it to them anyway, and maybe tomorrow they can finish it together. And it's kind of this sweet moment.
It's very sweet, and it's a Kandorian puzzle cube. So I was thinking it's almost like a Rubik's cube, except once you solve it, it does a new thing for you to solve. So it's like this perpetual, Kryptonian toy, and I just love the fact that Clark's sharing his heritage.
Yeah, I just hope Kryptonian Pinhead's not going to come out of it when you.
Right.
There's always a risk, I think. But yeah, it's a really sweet scene. It's one of those little human moments, which I think is important, especially in an issue like this, where I would say, I enjoy the plot in Warworld Saga, but let's be honest, what makes Warworld Saga special is the human moments with Clark. It's what Superman means. It's the idea of Superman. It's the idea of his compassion, humanity, all that stuff. So I think this scene in the middle of the issue, which kind of is bookended with these heavy plot, let's explain the orphan, let's explain all that. And although the back half of the issue is awesome, because the back half of the issue is them getting after Enchantress, and I'm skipping over a scene here, but we'll go back. They go after Enchantress, they get her out, and Mother, that Mother had a great backstory. That was the monster that Mongol made a deal with. Mongol was actually oh, I'm not going to try and defend myself from this horrible monster that takes over an entire planet. I'm impressed by her. I'm going to make a deal with her. And this is where Enchantress has been held. She's one of Mother's pets, and Mother transforms into, actually, see when she first transforms, not in every panel because she's got a very different shape, but there's that one panel with Clark in the foreground holding the sword where she's very xenomorph looking with the way her mouth opens. It's like Xenomorph meets Nemesis from Resident Evil with the gums showing the teeth.
I am absolutely not surprised that you would love this.
Oh yeah, this was
two very much you things. I do like that nest. Did remind me of Aliens.
The way they're all kind of in the they're in the not the vines, but imagine Alien, the way the humans are cocooned at the side of the walls and
there
stuff.
You go. They're cocooned. It's like a web of cocoons, and they're all kind of just in there. And Enchantress is in her June persona, and she kind of just feels, hopeless, and Clark has to give her a pep talk. basically. Like,
yeah,
Junie, we need you. You know, I do like that he appeals to June and not just to Enchantress.
I do wonder if there's an intentional play here on the idea of, like, so this character's called Mother, and she takes people and makes them her own and possesses them. I do wonder if this is kind of a, you know, she's almost like the bastardized version of taking in, you know, orphans. And obviously Clark's whole origin story is that, you know, he lands on Earth as an orphan, effectively, and the Kents take him in, and they're this loving couple that raise him right and teach him right from wrong and compassion, all that other stuff. The idea that Mother is the most horrible, like, sadistic, polar opposite version of what that is. It's this like almost. I mean, it's funny we could compare it because before she transforms into something very alien-esque, she's very Cenobite looking, to be honest.
Right.
Beforehand, so I think that's an interesting kind of, like, you know, it's intentional nightmare version of, like, the scenario of being adopted by something.
Yeah, it's a corrupted version. It's almost like it even goes back to like Annie, right? The play where you have the lady that runs the adoption place.
Yeah, on a more, like, cosmic level.
Yeah.
I don't want to quite say Lovecraftian, but a cosmic horror.
No, it is cosmic, but it's she is like a hive queen too at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, so, but yeah, no, just a very corrupted version of what a mother is, and not, you know, it's not nurturing. It's not, you know, it's the antithesis of what made Clark. Which,
funny enough, is actually why comparisons to the Alien Queen makes a lot of sense, because in Aliens, the whole point of the Alien Queen is that she is this awful representation of something that is just a mother, right? She's just this monstrosity, whereas Ripley with Newt is like an actual loving mother, and there's like a real connection that forms there. So that's why it's Ripley versus the Alien Queen at the end, because it's mother versus mother. It, you know,
right.
So, so the comparison is very apt, actually.
Yep.
So the other thing is that I almost said Darkseid again. So that's a slip I do almost every issue of this. Mongol promised Omak that they would bring back Light Ray with their deranged Lazarus pit. There's obviously not a Lazarus pit.
Using Genesis energy to bring her back, but she'll be one of the, what do they call it, like the Unbound?
Well, yeah, they don't. Yeah, we find that out here. He did not explain that to Omak beforehand. I think that's key here. We need to point that out, because when she comes out of this thing, like, she is transformed into, like, this, you know, monstrosity version of what she was before. This is not like Light Ray came out and she's, like, acting like herself. This is something else.
So, Omak was told that, like, oh yeah, if something happens, we can bring her back. But it was one of those things where, you know, it's a monkey's paw, and Mongol explains to Omak, yeah, but it's not gonna be like what you thought. It's gonna be, you know, she'll be like one of these Unbound, and, you know, kind of like a zombie kind of version of herself. But it's not just that. It's Mongol also destroyed Mother.
Oh, yeah, I was going to get to that. I don't know if I'd describe this Light Ray as a zombie, per se. I'd say she looks monstrous and evil. I don't know if zombie's the right... Because she doesn't look dumb. She doesn't look...
No. When I say zombie, I mean someone like undead, where they're not 100% alive, but they're, you know... So I don't know what, you know, term that would be. But she's not like a festering zombie.
I think she's just been transformed into something else, basically. You know, she's... Well,
because she was functionally dead, right?
Oh, yeah, no, but she's technically in there. But I think that, like... I don't think, like, maybe this seems like the sort of thing where at some point they're going to try and appeal to her, and maybe she'll come through and take control again or something. Before, you know, maybe before she sacrifices herself, because she can't live like this, you know, this monstrosity that she's become. But now, like you say, Mother shows up and is pissed at Mongol, because Mother was fighting Clark, and Clark says, like, you're going to have to take this up with the person that brought you here. And sure enough, Mother goes after Mongol, and Mongol says, you know what, you've outlived your usefulness, and rips her head in two at the jaw. So you get the tongue flapping around. There's a lot of blood. This is the sort of thing where if this was a human being that this was happening to, this would not be like this would have the mature label on it.
For sure.
Because it's an alien monster, they get away with doing this level of gore, but it is very gory, this death. So really good. And I have to compliment the art there, because, like, you really feel the tongue waggling about in that panel. Like, it really looks really good.
Well, there's that, and just the uncaring look of Mongol, right? Like did not sweat this monster that takes over whole planets, right?
He is yeah, you get this idea that, you know, when he made this deal originally, he was a bit weaker. He wasn't at full strength yet.
Yeah.
Whereas now he truly has become the Mongol who is, and like, you know, he's doing well, shall we say? So yeah, the end of the issue is Light Ray coming out as this new kind of like monstrosity version. I mean, she's still. I mean, when I say monstrosity, she's still sleek. She's still kind of this. She almost looked like a villain you might get in like an Aquaman story.
Yeah.
So there's a sort of a finniness to some part of where her hair would be.
And she's gonna need a different name. He's so sinister. Just even when he says, "Fetch the blood priest," let this be of one use one last time. Damn, the cadence on that tripped me up. But even he's just like, yeah, no, take up the scraps. We're gonna do something.
Yeah, and the last interesting tease here as well is quite important, because Mongol says, the Superman will have no choice but to seek the fire of the Olgrin, and that's actually what they want. Like, basically, Superman, unknowingly to him, might actually be playing into whatever plan Mongol has right now. That may be like bringing the energy to Warworld, or whatever he's doing is actually what Mongol wants, and he's playing into his hand a little bit. So, you know, the main story here, before we go into the backup, I would say it's an interesting mix of fleshing out one of these Warworld characters, in the case of the Orphan, giving you this great action sort of like horror sequence with the mother and Mongol, giving you that human scene with Clark and the kids, and then sort of teasing future stuff with the Light Ray stuff. So it's a really interesting mix, and they're all at least good. I think some segments are better than others, but like they're all of at least a good standard, and sort of further the plot quite a bit. This was Warworld Revolution Part 2, so this is Part 2 of this segment of Warworld. So no, cool stuff. So like I said, the backup is is just as important to the issue. It's you know, it goes to Lois and Steel and Supergirl now, who's back from space on Earth, and the Thelosian in the tank is like overloading, needs more of the source energy, and well, they don't know source energy yet, but obviously we do now. The Genesis energy, and you know, like stuff's breaking around. She's like basically just like sucking in energy from around her. The generators are going down. She's sucking in power from the electrical grid, and it's going to take all the power. So it's like, well, you know, what are we going to do? Like, we need to figure out something out here. And like, you know, Supergirl like grabs her at the last moment and flies her up to like the sun to try and like, you know, take energy from the sun. This is safer. This is not putting like Earth in danger by doing that up here.
Yeah, takes her up to space, lets her get closer to the sun to kind of try to purge this out of her. Yeah.
And then Natasha calls from our world, and we see in the main story, you know, basically someone says we're going to need help from elsewhere, and so it actually sets up in the main story this call, and Natasha's, you know, calling her uncle and setting this stuff up. So, you know, it's really straightforward. That's kind of that main scene, and then the scene at the end is setting up some other things. So basically, Amanda Waller goes to Belle Reve and makes an offer to a villain, the Conduit. Basically saying we need someone who has dealt with Superman before and Superman related problems. So I suspect that this is Waller being tasked to go after and get the Genesis fragment via, you know, supervillains, and that's what she's doing here. Maybe there's more to it than that, but that's kind of what I took from this final scene.
Yep, because they said, you know, to change everything, and then we get to him, and yeah. And they bring his suit out, which I'm not that familiar with Conduit. I know he uses like energy, like he's almost kind of like Omega Red in that way, where he uses like these whips or lines that can drain out energy, and it also seems green, which tells me it's almost kryptonite.
Oh yeah, when they were talking, I had no idea who this was until they said his name. I would never have guessed like who this was, because they even said Mr. Braverman, and I'm like, I'm going to need more than that. I'm going to need more than that comic, and it does tell you though. It says next the return of Conduit, so fair enough.
Yeah, let's let's see. He was a classmate of Clark Kent's. The page is taking forever. Yeah, he has kryptonite-based energy powers. He grew up Clark Kent's childhood. First appearance, Man of Steel 0. Yeah, so maybe he has energy siphoning powers, and that's what they're gonna do. Or are we sure Waller's not working with John? And maybe this is what they need. They need him to take off some of the power out of Thala.
I hadn't thought of that. I suppose it's possible, but when it comes to Amanda Waller, I assume she's doing something shady. So yeah. I'm not going to jump onto that theory necessarily, but it's not impossible. Yeah, they also mentioned that like Thal's like going through a rough time. Like she's sucking in this energy, but when they did expose her to the Genesis fragment, it actually made her seizures worse. So
yeah,
clearly, she needs help. She needs to be fixed. And probably the orphan and or other stuff at Warworld is going to end up being the help that she needs. But it's interesting that it's starting to really sort of spur up the Earth stuff as well now in the backups.
Yeah.
Given that it says next the return of Conduit, I suspect that means we're going to get multiple of these parts in the backups. Because it's still Johnson writing these, so they're still just as valid as part of the full run now as anything else. It was Lapham on the art, David Lapham on the art in the backup here. That's
where I thought. So I thought I got the art mixed up with the DC or the detective.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh no, it was the same one.
Yeah, he does both.
He did both. So, but yeah.
So he's basically doing a full comic's worth of art. Then he's just doing it between two backups. That's funny.
So
yeah.
But the very, very good. I like that. Steel. There's that page with Steel and Supergirl trying to contain Thala, in the energy, because it's when they show her the, when they expose her to the Genesis fragment and she starts going nuts. They have to kind of team up to calm her down. I thought that was a pretty cool page.
Yeah, the art in the backup is decent enough. It's just it's not exceptional, but it's solid enough.
No.
The main art though, Federici's just firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, and putting the arts, like, there's nothing wrong with Lapham's art, but it's so different than Federici's, right? Which has this painting softness, whereas Lapham's has these hard lines and angles.
Which I think is fine because it's meant to be on a different, it's on Earth, so it feels different enough, and it is a backup technically, so it's okay to feel separate. Federici's art though, like, from the the facial expressions and the heartwarming scenes to just the cosmic horror of Mother and like all the monstrosity stuff, all of it is just so atmospheric and just has such a vibe to it. Like, you feel the intimidation and like the menace and whatever Mongol's planning whenever he's on panel talking about what they're doing. So it's really the backup has no chance of living up to it, really, unless you get like a real superstar artist to like do like not necessarily the same thing as Federici, but do something so special in its own right that you can't even, like, it's like, okay, well, now you can debate which one's better, but as it is, it's just like, the backup's perfectly solid, but it ain't living up to that main story's art. But yeah, not a really strong issue. I wouldn't say it's a standout issue of this like saga, but it is definitely another. It's maintaining that average level like very well.
Very much so.
Yeah. So all right, what are you giving Action Comics 1044?
The main. Well, I guess it's a whole thing, right? 8.5.
Yeah, I would just go the whole thing because the backup's basically the same thing. Yeah. Yeah, 8.5 sounds right for me as well. Really good stuff. Yeah, one of the best runs right now at DC. Perhaps only bettered by two other books, one of which is later this show. So more on that later.
Man, you're really high on Task Force Z.
Yeah, very funny. So Robin, issue 15, Joshua Williamson writing with the Roger Cruz on art. I guess the first thing I'll say is that the Talia stuff in Detective does not feel like it links up with what Talia is doing in this book at all.
Nope.
And I would say that this book, even though Detective's obviously higher in the totem pole, I would say that this feels more like what they're actually doing with Talia, just because it feels like it's building to something.
Yep.
So I will say I actually almost had a problem with this issue in the middle. Because no, this will make sense when I tell you, because I thought when they had Talia escape from Chase's
DEO?
custody in the DEO, I thought, oh, that's kind of like she turned herself in at the end of Shadow War. This kind of deflates that ending. Like, why would she just escape immediately? So when it turned out that she's actually still working for Chase and this is all part of a deal, I thought, okay, it's not a mistake. It doesn't, it's not ruining the ending of Shadow War. This is just how they're playing it to the public and Batman and everyone else. Okay, that's fine. That's totally fine. Crisis averted. It's okay.
I do love how Batman and Robin show up at the DEO and Chase like, oh yeah, she just, she went nuts. And I feel like Batman's kind of like, this is not right. But he's trying to be better for Damian.
Oh, yeah, I assume he suspects that there's more to it than meets the eye.
He's trying to be better for Damian, and Damian's just like, no, Mom's changed, And so Bruce is kind of like, all right, for the kid, I'm not going to pick at this right now.
Yeah.
But, just know.
So as I say at the start, that kind of sets up that Chase is, using Damian and like saying, hey, we could go after Damian because he's kind of wanted for a bunch of things. Yeah. And from there we go to Damian fighting a bunch of clowns. I actually really like the joke of this, which is there's a gang of clowns who hate like being assumed that they're associated with the Joker because the Joker's not actually a clown. We're actually proper clowns. So that's what our thing is. We're really clowns.
Joker's running around in clown face. Is what they're saying.
That's basically what they're saying. And then the rest of the Bat family come in when he gets surrounded, and it's kind of like, oh no, he's with the rest of the family, and now they're a team. They're eating pizza. Cass saying she would have won the tournament if she was in it.
I love that because we said that from the beginning.
We did, yeah. I popped for that. I'm not gonna lie. But then they get the call about Oracle says, hey, Talia's escaped, and that leads us down the plot. And we get how Talia supposedly broke out. But they go looking for her. They find her quite easily because she wanted to be found. She wanted to say not even goodbye. She wanted to ask Damian to come with her. Yeah. And then Bruce is like, no, he's going to stay with me. And then Damian breaks up their fight and says, look, I'm not going with anyone. I'm on my own path now. Just like you were, father, once upon a time. And Bruce, to his credit, says, like, all right, you know what? That's fine. You know how to reach me and the rest of the family if you need us. I will trust you, my son.
Yeah. Well, because it starts at the beginning of the first Damian story in Batman and Son, where he chooses to go with Bruce.
Yeah.
And so here, now that he's choosing to go his own way, Bruce is having to respect that. Like Talia had to respect it, even though in the long scheme of things she didn't.
Yeah. But, yes, and Damian pulls a Batman on Batman and disappears at the end of the scene, which was a funny little moment. But then you get the reveal that Talia's talking. She finds this green car. Obviously, it's color suited to match her, along with an outfit and a sword. And Chase starts talking to her over the comms, and they're basically doing like a Birds of Prey style thing where Talia's going to be a spy for Chase, and she's going to be a spy in the general sort of Lazarus side of the world. Amongst assassins, the shadows, all those things. She's going to be a spy for the DEO, and this is all to keep DEO away from Damian. They won't go after Damian as long as she sort of works with them, which is actually a really interesting setup. And I do almost wonder if there's like a mini series bubbling following this, because it could be an interesting little arc. If not, maybe it'll pop up in another Williamson book. Since he's doing
they are priming Talia to be a big deal. It's kind of how when they were doing stuff with Poison Ivy throughout not Joker War, Fear State. Throughout Fear State, they kept hinting at big things. This feels the same with Talia. As there's definitely since the end of Leviathan, it seems like she's not quite an anti-hero, right? But she is primed for big things, which is cool.
Yeah. And then we go to Lazarus Island, and we've been kind of rooting for Damian to take this group of characters that we had through the tournament and turn them into like his new Titans. And he goes there. Connor's there. Connor Hawk, that is, just to be specific.
Hawk.
And a couple of others are there, and they're talking about, okay, let's find the others. I'm taking over this island. This is my island now, and this is going to be a haven for people like us. And the cliffhanger of the issue is that Lord Deathman shows up and says that Flatline's out of control. She's trying to kill him, and that Damian and Co are his only hope. Lord Deathman, I still love that name. I'm just going to be honest.
Yes.
It's perfect. So yeah, they're kind of setting up that there will be a status quo. Obviously, we know Williamson's leaving the book and the book is ending.
Mm-hmm.
I do wonder if there is going to be something else after this.
It feels like there's a lot of plates in the air right now.
Yeah, it feels like there's a lot of setup for something that could be a new book afterwards. Whether that's just Teen Titans something or whatever.
We have to look now that he's off of Batman, he's off of Robin, he seems to be off of Deathstroke. So
yeah, and obviously Dark Crisis. It has that, but once that's done, what's he doing after that?
So it makes me wonder if he's putting all these in the air to come back to him. But yeah, Lord Deathman showing up and saying Flatline's out of control, which I like because that's a character I grew to love.
I suspect, whatever plans are post Dark Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect whatever some of his new books are will probably be solicited for the month after that finishes. That would be my guess, but because I wonder, because if he's if he's doing anything to the timeline or the status quo of DC with the event, then I imagine whatever he's got planned will start after that. But I'm just kind of theorizing here more than anything. Yeah, it was another enjoyable show, Robin. I kind of like that Damian has patched things up with Bruce. I like kind of the welcoming vibe that it has with him sort of in good terms with the family again, but he still has to go off and do his own thing. And we enjoyed the introduction of all these other teen characters in the tournament. That it's actually kind of nice looking down that path now. So it feels like, I'm going to say it. Williamson's Robin is better than Williamson's Flash. I'm just going to say it. I'm
not going to argue. You could tell that he has a fondness for the character, like he did for Wally. It just felt like he had to write Barry, because that Wally stuff in Flash was pretty good. But I do like when Damian and Connor Hawke are there, and they're like, it's funny, as our dads had caves, but we have an island. I thought that was pretty funny. And those two, now that they were such at opposite ends, and now that they're teaming up for this, whatever their next endeavor is. I think it's pretty cool.
Dealing with Flatline, by the sounds of it, whatever that may include.
Whatever that entails, yeah. So, yeah. No, just his voice for all these characters are really good. I do like his Batman and his Talia. So, I just hope we get some payoff from all of this. And it doesn't have to be right away, of course.
Yeah.
But, could be down the line.
Roger Cruz's art is solid enough. It's got, that slightly cartoony vibe that this book's had.
It meshes well with this book. I don't know how well it would be in a Batman book.
Yeah.
Itself, but here with, like you said, it's this cartoony, almost over the top kind of style. It works out pretty well.
If it's with the tone that it's going for, certainly, I would say that. Although slight, this is not really a critique per se, but on the credits page, the G in Roger on for the artist, it's so the little bit that makes it a G is so small that it looked like a C, so it looked like it said Roser. Which is not a real complaint. It doesn't really matter, but it caught my eye, and I was like, "What does that say?" So yeah, I thought I'd mention it. All right, Matt, what are you giving Robin issue 15?
I'm gonna this one an 8.
Yeah, I had to just give you the same number, but to be honest, you're right, isn't it?
It's really solid. I thoroughly enjoyed this book this week. It's what it needs to be, and especially after Shadow War, which I did enjoy, but it's nice to get back to the elements of Robin.
And the best parts of Shadow War were the stuff that felt more Robin centric, to be honest.
Right.
So, well, maybe not included. I think the start of it with Razi's like wanting to turn himself in the assassination, that was all really good stuff. But as the rest of it went on, the best stuff was the Robin focus stuff.
The dynamic, yeah.
All right. The Swamp Thing issue 14. Ram V writing with Mike Perkins on the art, and sometimes you just you have an all-timer on your hands, and you realize it at some point during the run, and I'm just happy that I realized it was one of the best books I've ever read a few issues before the end, so I can really savor these last few issues and appreciate them for what they are. I'm
so glad this got the extra 6 issues.
Oh yeah, Oh yeah,
Because like if it would have ended at the 10, it still would have been great. But these last 3 issues?
Knowing what we get in these issues now, though, and the fact that I think they're even better than those first 10, like in hindsight, those first 10 are incomplete without the rest of it. We wouldn't have known that if we'd never got to read the rest of them. But
but just what Ram V and Mike Perkins are building here, it just feels like a new status quo. With Swamp Thing,
it's just exploring so much. I love all the ideas. I love the big, like almost cosmic style ideas they're playing with. Like, so the end of the last issue was these plant life forms like show up in space, and Hal comes down to get Levi, and he goes up. I loved it because he's like shielding Levi in space with his ring that he's kind of got a Green Lantern outfit on.
It's very Kyle-esque too.
Yeah. But basically, he sends him in. He uses whatever connection he has to the Green Left to turn into. It's basically just a little bit of like a dandelion.
That's, dandelion seed, kind of like when you make a wish and scatter him to the air. Yeah, is what he's focused his energy to. It's
just a little bit of that, and he goes into one of these plant-like things, and it becomes this sort of debate. It's just dual narration as they're talking to each other. I love that Levi's narration box becomes the Swamp Thing color. Because technically he's in plant form, even though he's not a full Swamp Thing. And he just starts talking and trying to convince, because they're here to fight this war. The Green has called in these reinforcements to help fight this war against, the
Parliament of
Gears and whatever else, that's come from Mann's world. But even just like Man itself, like, humans themselves are kind of like going to be exterminated because they are, as is discussed here, kind of a cancer to the planet. And while it's natural, while they're not an alien thing, that's one of Levi's arguments, is, well, this isn't an alien force that came in and like changed things. This is something that grew naturally from the planet. But then this alien being, Zeatar, says, well, yeah, but so does cancer. Like, cancer grows from mutations in what's already there and destroys and kills. And then Levi says, yes, but so does evolution. Like, that's mutation. And so there's this really interesting philosophical debate about, do humans have the right to continue to exist even though, like, they've kind of ruined things? But what's always been interesting about Swamp Thing, and the idea of the red, the green, and the raw, is that they all kind of need each other. There just has to be balance.
It's a balance.
What I really liked later on, when it cuts to Pale Wanderer, or whatever we're calling him now, and he's like, building his like core Parliament of Gears factory that's going to spread out and consume the desert and eventually the planet and turn it into a big robotic orb, right? When he's talking all about that, he does acknowledge that by the end of all that, he does have to have the others to still exist. He's the mechanical world. The industry, it needs commerce. It needs commerce. Right. That's the important word, though. I think is important. Is that the industry only functions if it gets to serve something. Like, if there gets to be like an exchange and like something's given back to it. I mean, it says its core goal is to perpetuate, which like all life, I guess. But that is so fascinating to me that it needs to take over. They're going to win this war, and he's going to take on like Levi's brothers, the warrior, the Green, building axes and taking on these weird mech monstrosities, which I love the design of, by the way. But at the end of the day, they still need the red and the green to exist because they need to actually exchange with someone. So even industry needs the other forces to exist in some capacity.
It's I always say this right. The commoditization of nature. Right? It only has worth because you need it, right? It's not like, so when you go back to the beginning of the book in Levi's origin, where he went to what was it?
India. Huh?
In India, right? But the national park, which is like one of the largest.
Okay. I'm never going to remember that, but yeah.
Yeah. It starts with a K, but it's one of the world's largest national parks, right? And the argument with national parks is we need these wild places to still exist, right? We still need nature, but people still want to build on them because they'll know, but there's resources there and stuff. And so, like, through the Parliament of Gears and industrialization, it's recognizing, like, yeah, we need those trees because we need those trees to become wood, and then that wood we can build more. Like you said, it's a self-perpetuating thing where stuff only exists because it has value. And when the value is not seen and it's deemed worthless, is, you know, so the fact that the green and the red and everything has value, but it's not, you know, the pale pilgrim, you know, is not being fully, I would say, not just honest, but it's not the full picture.
It's not, you know, natural and sort of relates to the real world, the idea that industry takes control of everything. And then to go back to Swamp Thing or Levi, like, you know, debating with this life form, is that it basically, you know, talks about how like because there's these images of like gravestones and the idea that people go back into the earth and that helps grow more green. You know, you see the flowers sprouting on the graves, you know, next to the gravestone. You see how the green is used in medicine and like a syringe with a baby. You know, it's this idea that there is kind of this give and take, and there is like giving back to the green in a natural sense that maybe, you know, obviously the balance isn't there right now. That's why the green's not particularly thrilled with humanity. But, you know, this alien being takes on a new name because the previous one doesn't suffice anymore, and now calls himself Endeavor. You know, we should call you Endeavor, is what Levi says to him. And Levi puts a call through to Hal and says, "Look, I'm taking one of these alien beings down into the heart of everything to try and, you know, fix this." And it comes down like a shooting star. And who's like nearby but Trinity, you know, this being that was created from the nuclear stuff, is watching and is still like trying to find her place in all this, and like where does she lie and what her choices are going to be. And that's when we get the glorious panels of like Levi's brother Jacob fighting like this weird mech monstrosity with like a core in the stomach. It's gorgeous stuff. It's this otherworldly stuff.
Mike Perkins is still working top notch.
Absolutely. And then the next page has like the fight happening in silhouette, and just like every time Trinity showed up, she's looked really cool with the glistening and the sparkling and the.
That's what I'm saying. There's like a translucence to her but it's still opaque. So it's like the light is being refracted through her, and there's just a way. I don't know how Perkins is doing it or if it's the colorist, but it looks awesome.
Yeah. And she talks about the angel above hovering over, referring to Hal coming down. You know, like, you know, so she's observing all this, and the big ending to the book is that Levi says he's not strong enough to like give this, you know, Endeavor the power to really like grow and sprout and fight this and like sort of change something. What was it? I need more strength, but the green has none left to give. You know, Endeavor is speaking to its ships, filling their mind with doubt to make it them, you know, reconsider that they're here to fight the way they were going to. And basically, you know, Jacob's taken all of the green strength to fight this fight, but you can see in that panel that Jacob's starting to struggle, that he's getting like beat up by the mech thing. So Hal is like, so you need the will to like do this, and so sure enough, you know, actually just to sort of play in the words, Hal says, "Can you stop this?" And he says, "I will." You know, that word's really important. So Hal says the oath, and basically channels all of his Green Lantern energy into Levi. So we see him as full Swamp Thing again, but he's got a Green Lantern symbol on his chest because he's being fueled almost entirely. He's still connected to the green through that one little connection that he's got, but he's being fueled otherwise completely by Green Lantern energy, which is a cool visual. It's almost a shame the cover had to like spoil it because that's what it is on the cover. It's a really cool cover, but it does kind of spoil the ending.
But yeah, no, and just the whole idea too of Will, and like the idea, like, so everything. When people talk about the environment now, there's always just this pessimistic, it's too late, right? But with that attitude, of course, it's too late. So I like that Levi here, by talking to this alien plant that came to help out the Earth, right? Is, you know, there's that doubt that no, we can rise above this, right? And that with the right willpower, you know, with it directed in the right direction, that we can overcome this. And yeah, I just the story within the story here is something Ramby has always been good at since we've been reading, especially with Swamp Thing. So just all that here, and just the idea of the Parliament of Gears watching as this happens, you know.
Yeah, just honestly, just the idea that this war's being fought between the Green and the Gears, or sorry, the Green and the Industry, because the
Right.
Parliament of Gears is to the Parliament of Trees, whereas the Green
Right.
is to the Industry. Like this war taking place as Levi's trying to convince this alien plant life form to help rather than just like kill everything, because
Right.
to take the Earth back effectively, is really fascinating. And it feels epic, it feels big, it feels cosmic. The way this is going on, and the idea that he's trying to convince and like use human compassion and logic to try and convince it, no, we can coexist with the Green, we should coexist with the Green. And yeah, the obvious environmental messaging that you can sort of like take from that like makes complete total sense. But then on top of all this, what we talked about the last couple of issues with Trinity is this idea that Trinity hasn't really decided yet. Like, she can be this like the most destructive force that's ever been known, or she can be this force for good, in the sense that she can be energy. She can, nuclear power in many ways can be used for good things, but she's not decided yet. She's so indifferent to like, will I be a force for good or a force for bad? So the idea that this moral debate's taking place with this green life form, will Trinity see this and be inspired? Will she be kind of the real linchpin that stops this war, in the following issue or the final issue? We've only got two left, but I'm super excited. The stakes feel like so high. Like, I can't imagine now not getting these last 6 issues after that first 10, because this feels like what the whole point is this last 6 issues.
Right, and I remember MV saying that too, is like, it's really going to come together with those last 6 issues. I mean, if it just stood alone, those first 10 would have been fine, right? But it wouldn't be this, like, we would still really enjoy it and we'd recommend it. I don't know if it'd be up there.
It'd be really good, but it wouldn't be this special.
Right. And it's funny, though, too, because, like, Alan Moore worked both on Swamp Thing and Green Lantern around the same time. And I feel like Ramves was like, you know what, I could work those in together. And just the way that Trinity looks up, I think it's hilarious, too. That the way that Trinity looks up at Hal and calls him an angel, when she was created at the Trinity Sands, bombing range, where pilots like Hal, were dropping these bombs.
I think the other thing, obviously, there's the obvious color thing here, where obviously the Green Lantern energy has nothing to do with the green, as as Swamp Thing knows it, but it looks cool, and it's still the right color when he puts all his energy into him. But I do think there is kind of an interesting like comparison with Green Lantern, in that the green light in the Green Lantern sense, and the spectrum of colors, represents will, which kind of represents like what humans have and use to actually do good, and potentially do bad as well. But the idea that the green, like, so the idea of using Green Lantern is like this comparison point is that green, in that sense, is also this force for good. It's a very different force for good, but there is I'm not even sure what I'm trying to say here, but it's making sense in my head. I know what you're trying to
say is that with the fact that they're both green, right, on that top level, right, on that shallow level, it's like, Green Lantern, Swamp Thing, they're both green, but also the fact that with will, we can alter things. Right?
I guess what I'm trying to say is that, but try to prove to the green that humans can have good, is the idea that there's naturally a thing in them that then correlates to the color green, is kind of symbolic to the green that, there's good in human beings. Like, I don't know,
it's the potential.
It's making sense in my head.
I know what you're trying to say, but yeah, and just this, it made me miss Green Lantern so much, because this is the type of stuff that I loved with the character and stuff like this. And not so much the space cops or the big cosmic things, but kind of these smaller stories where they pop in and, serves as a different...
Smaller story? This is like some of the biggest scope and anything right now.
What I mean by a smaller story is this isn't Hal and the Blackest Night. I love the Blackest Night. And he even brings that up here, that in the Blackest Night, you gotta have the will and all that. But, like, he's here to assist, the type of thing. But yeah, one last thing, too. That double page spread where you bring up how the humans can live with the green, and it's done with a DNA strand that is green and red, just showing how intertwined they all are. it's just a masterful piece of storytelling, right? And you follow that double helix down, as you're reading the page, and it really works out. It's a really cool layout. How to shout that out, Mike Perkins.
Yeah,
doing a lot.
Obviously the art here is just phenomenal across the everything. Like there's so many distinct pages in this book, and just the color schemes, particularly when you get to like, okay, here's the Parliament Magiers, like they're like sort of base, and it's like this factory with the red sky above it. It's really ominous, and then you've got all the contrast with the green when they're at war with them. But then you've got the contrast with the purple that sort of surrounds Trinity whenever she seems to show. I mean, she's green, but there's always purple around her, and this kind of like, star glitteriness to it. And and like just throughout the whole thing, there's just such atmosphere. Everything feels even bigger than it is because of kind of this ethereal quality to the ideas in the art. And the art is constantly backing that up. It's a perfect marriage. It's reading a book like this is you just kind of get this special feeling that you just don't get that often, and yeah, so I really can't do nothing but praise, honestly. Yeah, I mean, the like honestly, the only critique I can say is that it wasn't as good as that issue that I gave a straight 10 to a couple issues ago. That is like the most negative I can get, is that it's not quite just as the perfect, oh my god, this blew my mind, but it was amazing and felt great the entire time. Everything just felt like the word ethereal is definitely, and I think all my favorite Swamp Thing has kind of an ethereal or like, because Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, whenever Swamp Thing starts narrating and he's talking about like the green and life and death and wanting to live or die and all that stuff, there's this kind of just quality to it that feels otherworldly in a way that feels I'm trying to use a word that's other than ethereal, but that's basically what I'm getting at. In a way that really clicks with me, and in a way that a lot of magic-y stuff doesn't. Even though you could argue that this is kind of like a fantasy thing, it does feel different to me. But that's splitting hairs, I suppose, at that point. But no, wonderful stuff. All right, what are you giving Swamp Thing 14?
I'm giving this one a 9.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 9.5. I'm going as close as I can without giving it the 10, because I got to hold back a little bit, but I am super excited for these last 2 issues now. Super excited. So.
Also wanted to shout out the other Green Lantern that shows up with Hal is that plant Green Lantern.
Yeah, the one with the what do we call it? The broccoli head.
Yeah. So I thought that was a fun appearance, because he's also a plant-based form, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, call having to talk to the plant things. maybe they did that. Maybe that's why he's so close by, because they did that first and then it didn't work.
Yeah, Levi was closer, so.
All right, Task Force Z issue 9, Matthew Rosenberg writing with Eddy Barrows on the art. So we're getting close to the end of this, right?
Out of 12, right? Or is it 10? No.
Joe, it doesn't actually say in the cover out of anything anymore, but I'm sure it is actually still just a 12-issue miniseries. But regardless, so last issue, Jason was fighting the Bat Family. I did think it made him look a bit too good when he was fighting every single Robin pretty much at the same time, and Cass. But Steph's here at the start of this issue to give him a warning, and she's not, she says that, I'm not just here as a friend, I'm here to give you a warning. And sends him on the path to where some stuff from the Powers Company might be going down. But yeah, so this issue, it was kind of a bridging issue. There's a lot of setup in here. Stuff with Bloom. Kirk comes back to being human, more or less, as he puts it.
The fact that they're talking about James Manfield, right, and that and she famously died in a car accident where it was said she was decapitated. So the fact that that's who they're talking about, knowing that the last time we saw Kirk, Bloom was carrying his head around.
Yes.
It's
funny.
Pretty dark but funny. Zaz as one of the Task Force Z guys, I think is funny too. We see a young Derek Powers, which is big for Batman Beyond continuity. because he's the one that ends up being Terry's arch nemesis that first season. And he's the one that facilitates the Wayne powers.
Yeah, it's Bloom that runs into him later on when he's snipping around looking for files. And then, Dr. Powers is pissed that he's been doing that, obviously. And he says, I've been waiting to find you. I want to fill your head with all sorts of wisdom that I've accumulated.
He's like, what?
Yeah, so it's interesting ideas. Sure enough, when Task Force Z go to the Snyder ice rink, now I love them using the names of the creators for things, but they did use Snyder for a college in Batman not too long ago. Yeah. So I feel like we've used Snyder too close together here.
Yeah, although him having an ice rink instead of a college, I think is a little bit more. That could literally be anything. But
now he's got both.
No, I know, but with the ice rink, it doesn't seem like when they do like the, Giordano Way, or O'Neill Boulevard or whatever, the ice rink I think is a smaller. I can allow both in my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could have went with anyone else,
Just could be the Snyder ice rink at Snyder College, right?
I mean,
we don't know.
It sound like that, but I'll give it to you.
But we get a conundrum here with what's her name, Sundowner. They're trying to bring her in, which I think that was a cool showing what she can do, right?
Oh yeah,
we've seen it before.
She's lying there, just kind of like asleep, basically, and they try to bring her in, and she wakes up, and she goes like her powers kick in, and she basically goes into like a full demon mode. And it's probably the best couple of pages of the book, honestly. With her attacking, she's all got like, red streaks. She's like a big monster, big teeth, all that stuff. She's got kind of she's got the long nails. She has kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not banshee, but like that second page where you sort of see like the actual shape of her a bit better. She gives off this like raging monster vibe, and the rule is that she can't function in light. So it's a really simple rule to understand. They try and shoot a flare. That's not enough light though, because it goes away too quickly. Grundy grabs her, and he's got another flare. Well, the flare didn't work. KGB says like the flare didn't work last time, and Red Hood's like, no, shoot Grundy with the flare. And so the plan is to set Grundy on fire so that he's like a big candle, and that's enough light to like knock her out again.
So funny. And then also Grundy here, where he goes, Grundy burns. Monster is woman. Woman is dead again. For whatever reason, that made me laugh. I know it probably shouldn't have. But yeah.
Yeah, it was a really funny sort of dark idea. Like, we'll just set Grundy on fire and that'll like create enough light. But the logic makes sense, and it's how they win the fight. That sequence is my favorite in the issue by far. Is them dealing with Sundowner. Yeah. So when they get out, they get confronted by some police forces, and Red Hood has to sort of do overtime to make sure no one kills anyone. Yeah. Although it is worth mentioning, Bane runs off during all this. He has like a moment where he starts freaking out and just runs away. Meanwhile, Two-Face starts renting the old warehouse that they fought Mr. Freeze at. He's now, because that turns out Black Mask owns that warehouse and was renting it to Mr. Freeze, and is now going to rent it to Two-Face as a new headquarters for Task Force Z. So Red Hood's not very happy about this. Gets in Black Mask's face, and then Zaz goes after Black Mask, and basically they get him to lower the price of the place because they threaten to kill him heavily if not.
That scene made me laugh too, with him like out loud, just because it where he says, I'd rather have him eat me than take the cheap price. And he goes, all right, that works. He goes, no, fine, whatever you want. That's the best use of Black Mask, I feel.
Yeah. So the end of the issue is that they realize, the scientists, twins or clones or whatever they are, they realize that Sundowner has some Lazarus resin in her body still, and they can maybe take it out and feed it to everyone else, so they've got another couple of days of having the squad. So the end of the issue is pretty much them doing this and fueling everyone else with Lazarus resin. And then the other cliffhanger is that Bane shows up at the lab where Bloom and Powers are, and Bloom somehow is up to something here, and is apparently given Bane some venom and has got him under his control now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's some worries here. You know, who knows what he's up to. Also, I've just realized this is that Kirk is eating in every scene he's in, pretty much in this issue.
He pulls a Brad Pitt.
Yeah. He's got a sandwich in like every scene. So for some reason, it's vaguely amusing. I'll say that.
Yep.
So.
Also, Bloom, just Rosenberg's voice for Bloom kills me too, because he's just like this scheming fast talker, right? Because he's talking about the restricted files, and he goes, "I've seen those before." Well, you shouldn't have. That's probably true. And then you go down, he's talking about he wants to get a name tag to make it official that he works for Powers, and just that type of stuff. But like, I want to know what's up with the venom. Like, did he give him actual venom? Did he give him a more concentrated dose? Like, and when? Or is this one of Bloom's seeds? Right? Did he implant him in there? So yeah, I love how much of a wild card Bloom is.
Yeah.
Throughout this book.
Yeah, it's still a little bit up in the air is actually what he's up to, but he's obviously got a lot of plans, and he's been kind of scheming ever since like, issue 2 or 3. So, fascinating to see. I was glad to see Eddy Barrows back in the art because he wasn't on last issue. No. We had a fill-in artist.
Yeah.
So, he wasn't a terrible artist by any means, but it's just nice to have Barrows back.
Nice fill-in. Yeah. Also, it just tells me too that like when they killed Man-Bat to set this up, and then Bane, it feels like by the end of this, I do feel like we'll get some of these villains back, right?
Yeah,
just seeing how Bloom brought Kirk back from just a head, you know? So I think that's pretty cool. I like when they can do stuff like that in a story.
Yeah, maybe he brings more of them back, because he's probably going to bring Bane back properly, and maybe some of the others, and maybe they're all going to be somewhat loyal to him, because he brought them all back to life properly. And then, you know...
Because it doesn't seem that Kirk needs the resin. Right? Like the other ones do.
I mean, they could tell us otherwise next issue, but it doesn't seem like it yet, you know?
Yeah. So, and then who knows with how the Venom's reacting, but yeah, Bane looks like a proper monster at the end here, you know? And also, is he hovering? Like, did they bring him in via helicopter? What's he doing?
It's a good question. Let me have a look. There's like I don't know if that's like a parachute behind him that's like been sort of like, you know.
That's like the net that they try to capture him with the task force. So right before he ran off. So him just kind of floating there is weird.
It does look like he's floating. I wonder if he's just dropping from that though, rather than
right. Yeah. So I said, did they bring him in by helicopter? And he just came in, but
I mean, it says next time, guys, seriously, what's up with Bane? So I'm assuming we're going to get answers to what's going on with Bane.
What is up with Bane? That is a great question, Rosenberg.
Yeah. Very curious to see how they wrap all that up. All right, what are you giving Task Force Z issue 9?
I mean, it was a 7.5.
Yeah, I'll just go straight 7. It was good. Yeah, I had fun. It's one of my lighter reads, but it's out that week. So there you go. DC versus Vampires Killers issue 1. So this is a 6-issue tie-in miniseries to the main DC versus Vampires book. Matthew Rosenberg's the sole writer on this one. He's co-writing, or scripting the main book, and then Mike Bowden is the artist on this. So this primarily follows Harley, who's working with Catwoman, who's kind of a supporting character. And she's sort of taken on the criminal underworld, the human criminal underworld in the sort of vampire-occupied Gotham. And this is... why does this say one-shot on the front?
Because this is the DC Vampire vs. Killers. That's why. So it's a story that takes place in between. Just like that last one with Robin. No, but this isn't an actual DC versus Vampires.
What are you talking about?
You said it's a one-shot.
No, it's the start of a 6-issue mini.
It is?
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
I thought this was... So when we got to the end, I thought we were seeing more of Harley in in DC versus Vampires.
Unless there's a second one shot, and then there's and I'm mixing this up with the six. Maybe the 6 issue mini still to start, but I'm positive this is a 6 issue mini.
Let's look. Yeah, because that's how. What the hell? Where'd that come from?
Hold on a second.
Yeah, I'm gonna look this up. I'll just say this too. I did not like Rosenberg's voice for Harley in this.
I agree with that actually. I had a hard time with this issue, mostly because so much of it is her talking that it's kind of an issue.
In that there's a fine line when it comes to Harley, and I feel like Tynan walks it, Taylor walks it. Here it's just too far over. I think even for an alternate reality like this, it just didn't work for me, which sucks because I like the idea here, of Harley trying to take everything over. But my family key is saving the world. Let's see.
Oh god, this isn't even in this. Come on, give me a proper solicits thing. Oh, here we go. This is the original Jurama one. All right, Keller's issue 1. Oh, this is a one shot. Never mind. Okay, fair enough. I'm confusing this with because there's a 6 issue mini coming.
Yeah. Right.
Must start next month. Okay. But I'm going to go and just corroborate.
But yeah, so here she ends up. Do
you know what?
She ends up running across Mad Hatter.
Given that I didn't like this that much, I'm actually pleasantly surprised that this is.
Who's doing the 6 issue? Is it Rosenberg again?
I thought it was from memory, but let me just go and.
So while you do that, I'll talk about the issue. So her and Catwoman have a crew. They go in, and Mad Hatter's been running, smuggling operations out of Gotham in this new vampire-led world. And so she basically she goes to let Jervis know that she runs Gotham now. And there's a back and forth about this that they she tells him not to rhyme, and she ends up rhyming and stuff. And she ends up killing Mad Hatter, which Selena is like, well, you shouldn't have done that because that's going to bring too much attention to us. The vampires kind of let us operate.
Well, yeah, that was my other problem with this, is that it felt like Harley and Selena, but especially Harley, it felt like, and I know it's not technically current day continuity DC, but it felt like this was like just a straight up villainous Harley as opposed to one. I mean, I know it kind of ends with her like maybe going to do the good thing with the blood that Gordon gave her, but it kind of felt like she'd kind of, I don't know, just
she's regressed.
Regressed back to just being a villain at the start of this, and that was a little bit weird to take in. And just for the record, I did find there is a 6 issue miniseries starting in July. And it's called DC versus Vampires All Out War.
That's it.
I didn't realize there was 2 1-shots and then the 6 issue mini. I thought this was the start of the 6 issue mini. So that's just me mixing things up.
But yeah, so she has her crew. She's got Clayface and Grundy and Selena. They're living in what reminds me of the Ninja Turtles base from Secret of the Ooze. Right? Looks like an old subway station. She has a manservant for some reason.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
And so Gordon shows up, but the evil Justice Society and Scarecrow are on his tracks. She gives him Luther's blood, or he gives her Luther's blood. I guess Gordon gets killed, right?
Yeah, it was off panel, but yeah.
Off screen, or off panel, as you said. Mr. Terrific's there. And Selena gets upset that Harley's doing this stuff with her.
It's important to explain what was special about Lexi's blood.
Okay, go ahead.
It's a very important detail in this scene.
Well, it kills vampires.
Well, it kills vampires, so it should be taken somewhere to possibly synthesize and duplicate and whatever else
to get it out of Gotham. Right.
Yeah. So she goes back to Arkham, where her and Selena are living and seem to have control of, and Selena is questioning what this vial of blood is. Harley's saying she's thinking about it, kind of misses the world. Vampire Mr. Terrific and Dr. Midnight have seemingly killed Grundy, and Clayface is just a little lump now at this point.
Which was the joke I hated the most in this.
Oh, well, it's a joke it leads to, yeah, but we'll get to that. So Harley fights back, dusts Mr. Terrific. She comes back to Selina and pulls out what's left of Clayface, but it turns out that she's actually just picked up a shit, like a dog shit or something.
Yeah.
And this joke was like stupid.
It landed with a thud. It didn't go.
No. This is the sort of Harley humor that I do not want.
Nope.
But the reveal here is that Selina's already a vampire and goes to attack Harley, and turns out Harley has already injected Lexi's blood into her system. So after Selina bites her, she starts to dust, and it basically just ends with Harley walking away from Arkham, and it's the end? Question mark. I'm sure Harley's going to pop up either in the miniseries or the main book, and it'll be relevant that she has Lex Luthor's blood in her. So I'm sure the plot point is important to know that that's happened. But I did not enjoy this issue, and I usually like Rosenberg's writing, so I was surprised that I didn't like this.
Well, it's just that thing where I don't particularly enjoy Harley as much as everyone, and then it has to go. When you write Harley, it has to be from a certain point.
I enjoy. There's several interpretations of Harley that I enjoy, but there's also a lot that I don't.
Yes.
A lot of her ongoing comics tend to sort of fall into.
This felt almost like Deadpool Harley, and that's not the one I enjoy. There's a very fine line. And like again, like I give Tynan all that credit writing her in Joker War, which I ended up liking her a whole lot. But yeah, here it's just she's kind of all over the place. The poop joke, and then the stuff with her and Selina I thought really did work, and then of course Selina's a vampire. So all that stuff it built to the end pretty okay. But yeah, overall this was kind of like you said, it'll be important in the sense that Harley has the Luthor blood,
that's the important part. I think I wasn't so fond of. I mean, I wasn't really liking Selina's voice either, but at least once it turned out she was a vampire, it made sense why she was being more villainous.
Yeah. Well, I also like the fact that she's so used to playing the lines. It made a little bit more sense to me for Selina to tell Harley, like, no, like, just keep your head down and we'll get through this. Also, Mr. Terrific is supposed to be the Vampire King's consigliere, and, Harley just dusts him, which I felt like he should have had a bigger role, right? She could have dusted any of the other guys, I felt. Yeah. I don't know.
So, yeah, because what I'm kind of expecting from the miniseries is that obviously Rosenberg, having like scripted the rest of the main book, knows which characters don't pop up that much in it.
Yeah.
So he's probably said, oh, hey, there's a whole batch of characters I like that aren't in the main story. I'm going to go do a mini with them in it. Right. I don't know who that's going to include. I could go and check this list, I suppose, but I'll find out. I'll find out later in the month. But
yeah, and we still, they did talk about Superman, right? And so we're still up in the air about if Superman's been turned or not. Which is nice.
Harley certainly thinks he has, because Harley says, or sorry, Selina says, right. Or no, that's Harley that says it. Harley says it to Mad Hatter, that it's just a matter of time until Superman comes down and kills everyone.
Right.
Yeah. And the art's not bad. It's definitely got a cartoony style. It's definitely sort of playing more to Harley as a character than it is the book in general. Yeah. It doesn't feel like Otto Schmidt's art in the main book by any means.
No, it won me over by the end, where at first I didn't like it. It was a little bit too cartoony. But by the end, with some of the layouts and the way the action flows, it ended up working pretty well.
It has some nice moments. My favorite moment in the whole book is probably when Harley gets out of the sewer tunnels and like Solomon Grundy's like standing in the shadows, but then his head falls off.
Yeah,
I thought that was an effective little panel sequence, which the cartoonist kind of helped it make it feel like a sort of almost like a Scooby-Doo-esque moment, which I kind of appreciated that. But by and large, there wasn't that much atmosphere. I would say it kind of doesn't fit the vampires are in control world that we're supposed to be in.
Yeah.
And the voice of Harley being kind of like off and annoying was a shame. So.
Yep.
What are you rating DC versus Vampires Killers issue 1?
I'm giving this a 5.5.
Yeah, I was gonna go a straight 5, I think, on this. But you know what? I thought there was gonna be 5 more issues of it, and I might have to like quit. The fact that it's only a one shot makes me quite happy.
Yeah, you're prepping to tap out, and they're like, "Oh no, I can win this."
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Hopefully the miniseries is better. And you know what? The other one shot was pretty good, so I have no reason to think it won't be. So
yeah, this was just maybe the wrong story, you know.
Yeah.
But who knows?
All right. So Batman Catwoman issue 12, Tom King writing with Clay Mann on art. The final issue in this series, and boy,
this is a book I read. That's my review.
Like, obviously, you know, the future stuff in this, you know, old Selena goes off on vacation, leaves things in a not sort of happy terms with her daughter, but it does reveal that, you know, what's her face? Andrea, Phantasm. Yep. She's actually still alive. She never died in the present day story. That was all a ruse they had together. And I was like, okay, I wish I remembered more clearly what all those details were, so that this would have hit me. Like, I do remember that she was supposed to have died, but like I could not tell you much about the context of how that happened.
I just remember that they were standing in that family's room, where like Christmas, in the living room, and that she admitted that that her child was their child, and then Joker shot her. That's all I remembered. So I did like that, because I like that they pulled a scheme. I also love the dynamic between Selena and Helena here. Right? That's her name, right? It's the Batwoman?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Is that, she thinks that she wants the ring, and she's like, no, your father gave me that ring. I left you with something else. So I did love their dynamic a whole lot.
Well, go on. What'd you leave her?
I gotta remember. This is the first thing I read this week.
It's the glasses.
Yeah, that's right. The glasses of the Joker.
Yeah.
That prove basically that Selena was there when Joker died, and that Helena can be her father's daughter, and give these to Commissioner Grayson, and prove that, or she can just let her go off into the sunset because she's an old woman. And that pisses off Helena, right?
Yeah, and she didn't want the ring either. For the record, because she thought it was the ring she was giving her in the box, but she was like, "I don't want that." And we see what the actual wedding was. That's the last chunk of the issue. It's just a cheesy wedding hotel. Selena says, "Let's get the bat package," which is some dude dressed as Batman will officiate the wedding. And it sort of calls back to the double date, because like they need 2 witnesses, and like he calls in Clark and Lois.
I love that the most, because they show up Lois shows up in the dress that she borrowed from Selena in that double date.
Would you notice that Clark's using the Smallville rules, where he's in the colors? He's got a blue suit, a red shirt, and a yellow tie. Just that's just
he wears his best for his friend's wedding.
Yes.
Who else is there? But yeah, I love that they did a quickie wedding. I
don't have a whole lot to say. It ends with them, the kiss after they're married, and that's the end of the issue. And it does feel a little bit like it's if anything, it's more of an epilogue issue to the rest of the book than it is kind of its own thing. And that is really weird when it's been delayed so much that it's been like 3 months since issue 11.
Yeah. I will say, though, you could tell Tom King was having fun. I felt like early in his run, he had the Batman restaurant, right?
Yeah.
They all went and ate at. I feel he's having the same amount of fun here with the dude dressed in the Adam West Batman costume, officiating the wedding. And they're supposed to play another song.
Like, I have no doubt that there's some layers here, and there's some things that he's poking at that he's probably put a lot of thought into. But I think the delays between issues have made it impossible for me to actually remember anything, to actually connect those dots. I am genuinely curious how this is going to read as just a 12-issue hardcover, because that is probably going to be much better than the experience reading the single issues.
I think so, up until you get to the really bad Liam Sharp art. And then it's gonna, if you remember that.
I do.
He got experimental with it, and but no, it felt like finally Tom King was having fun again, because this book got pretty dark at points, right? Talking about child murder and Christmas
yeah.
and whatnot.
That
So
said, though, I do want to say, even if reading this as 12 issues like in one run makes it better, I still think it's easily the weakest Tom King
Prestige.
12 issue book, that he's done, or including Supergirl as well as an 8 issue book.
Yeah, no, I don't argue there. Like this is nowhere near the level of Supergirl.
And certainly not Mr. Miracle
or Rorschach
or Human Target or Strange Adventures. Like, man, this dude's been pumping out classics after classic.
This does feel though like this was supposed to how his arc was supposed to finish.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a few things that have changed. If if it had been in just the regular Batman book, I'm sure there's a few things that would have been a little bit different. I mean, this scene at the end where they get to actually finally marry, I've got a funny feeling that either wouldn't be there, or it'd be like a dream sequence, or maybe a scene like a possible future or something like that.
That's what I'm thinking of, the possible future, because we did get that where it was in one of the annuals where we had the Michael Lark story.
Which
was last days.
Which is his death and like all that stuff.
Yeah. And how the family comes around him. So I feel like this would have been one of those types. And it maybe wouldn't have been 12 issues, right? But it would have ended a certain way. But no, but again, I felt like he was having fun here towards the end, which is good. Because that fun does come through in like Human Target, where that's a very fun book to read.
Yeah.
Despite the serious subject matter of it all.
But you know what? It says something though that Human Target is so well written and told that I am not worried about jumping back into issue 7 after 4 or 5 months since issue 6. Like, every single issue has been so distinct. Every issue had its own sort of like arc and what the character's going through and realizing, and it's inventive at points. Sometimes it's just raw like comic art where the faces are telling a story and they're reacting to things. It's exceptional. And this, by comparison, is a bit of a mess.
Yeah. And it helps that like he gets the best artists to work on these, and we're not that there's anything wrong with Clayman. Like, Clayman's serviceable, but it does seem like Heroes in Crisis, which we don't talk about, was Clayman. This was mostly Clayman. It's kind of funny how that broke out.
I don't necessarily think it's Clayman's fault per se, because it just happens to be the ones that he's worked on are the ones that have been by far the most disjointed in how they've been told. Yeah. So it almost feels like as it's jumping around things, like it could practically just be like pin-ups that are somehow strung together to make a story at times. Not every page, but a lot of them do feel that way.
But yeah, I think that's funny. But yeah, no, Tom King is spoiled for great artists and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm just glad it's over at this point, to be honest. Yeah, me too. And I am enjoying Killing Time, which is his other Bat project.
Yeah.
Right? And he has Marquez doing that. So, like, again, he's spoiled for great artists.
Yeah. Although, that said, while I'm enjoying Killing Time, there's a lot of things I like in it. I would still rate that lower than all the other minis that he's done in the last 5 years.
I would put it over this, though.
I would easily put it over this too, but I wouldn't say it's as good as Supergirl. Or any of the others that we talked about.
We should just rank them one day when Connor gets back. Oh wait, Connor hasn't read them, so we just do it now.
Oh, it's so hard because I probably would put Supergirl under the other big three. The big three being Strange Adventures, Mr. Miracle, and Rorschach.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that Supergirl is not great, because it is.
Yeah.
But those three are like oofed. Like, three of the best things we've read in the last.
For me, Strange Adventures and Mr. Miracle are both, they're real close. Rorschach still is my favorite that he's done. Human Target might unseat it, depending how it goes in the back half.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we can't call Human Target yet because it's only halfway through.
But I would, so it would be like 1 and then 2, 3, and then right there, maybe a smaller level was that Supergirl. Because that Supergirl book really, by the end, really moved me. So. Yeah. And that's the thing that I feel that's missing with some of his Bat work, is that it's missing some of that stuff that, it doesn't have that emotional connection for me. And I thought that's just because, I get annoyed by Batman easily, but it doesn't seem to be working with you either. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just the big swings. I think that part of the problem is that this format that he's telling this story in, he's kind of adhering to the format that he was doing a lot of the latter half of his Batman run, and that's when we didn't like the book that much. That's when I thought the book went downhill. So inherently, this just had a kind of an anchor around it that it just maybe was never going to completely overcome, sadly. And I get why, as a writer, though, he wanted to keep it consistent, because it is kind of the end of his run. It's kind of like he's finishing off all those things he was doing. It's just that, sadly, I don't really like how he told a lot of, the last like 30 or so issues of his Batman run. Like, I don't really like how he did those. So, hey ho, it is what it is. It's finally over, though. So, what are you giving Batman Catwoman issue 12?
I'm gonna give this a 6.5.
Yeah, I think I'll just go with a 6. Sadly, and I thought this book did start off all right when they were doing the Phantasm stuff, and it was a bit more conventional in how it was told before it got too complex. But maybe it was just the delays made it worse. I don't know, but there was definitely some stuff towards the end that wasn't working as well. Yeah. So, all right, there you go. That's the books. That'll take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and of course top 5 books. So, panel / moment, what you got?
Hooey. There's a lot in action that I liked. Like Superman dealing with those kids and teaching them the Kryptonian, history, not history, that's what I'm looking for. Anyways, with the puzzle stuff, I like that. But Hal doing the Green Lantern oath and a Swamp Thing coming out afterwards, hard to beat that. So that's going to be mine.
Yeah. I struggle. I think I'm actually going to go with Action Comics, but I'm going to go with the Death of Mother.
That's pretty good.
I'm going to go with that just for the horror of it. Even though there is a few great things in Swamp Thing that I could easily be picking for this. But that's my choice. Look at the covers. I actually, I had a bit of a look earlier, and there's a lot to pick from. There's a Behermo detective variant, which is, solid. It's what to expect from Behermo. Main cover for Action's pretty good. There's also a Ian Churchill cover for Action, which is really nice.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's basically it's kind of like a sequence of Clark opening the shirt and flying off, but it's kind of nicely framed in how it's told. There's a variant for Batman Catwoman by Travis Charest, which looks quite nice. It's got kind of a sort of dreamlike quality to it. I quite like. But the two that I really wanted to point out is a variant for Task Force Z by James Harren, which is Swamp Thing kind of in a field with like a spooky house behind him, and it's got kind of like an Archie Comics horror vibe to it, the way it's got the shading.
Swamp Thing or Grundy?
Sorry, Grundy, that's Swamp Thing.
There you go.
Grundy. Yeah, and it's got this kind of like pulpy horror comic look to it.
Yeah, it does. I didn't see that till just now. That's a good vibe.
It's really nice. That all said, though, as much as it spoils the ending, the main Swamp Thing cover is the one I'm picking.
There you go. Because
it's phenomenal. But yeah, I had like 7 covers I wanted to shout out there because there were so many good ones. So it's a good week for covers. What you got?
So I do like the Robin main cover with the death to the family, and it's got, there's a knife in the family picture of Bruce and Talia and Damian, and it looks like they're fighting with their shadows. It's a lot of fun. But I was gonna go Swamp Thing, and to prevent it from winning everything, I'm gonna go with that Task Force Z variant, because that is a real cool. It's got Halloween vibes for sure.
Oh yeah, it feels like it could be like I'm not saying it looks like Tim Sale necessarily, but it feels like a Tim Sale-esque like long Halloween cover or something.
Like because like the dimensions are just off enough, but it still works. It's abstract. Yeah, he has big old mitts. Looks definitely monstrous. So yeah, that's a good one.
Good stuff. What is your art of the week?
It's Mike Perkins for Swamp Thing. I do want to give it to Federici, but that Swamp Thing art, so good.
Yeah, I gotta go Swamp Thing too. There's just no question for me. It's Perkins on Swamp Thing. And then top 5 books. Take it away.
All right, number 1 Swamp Thing. 2 is Action Comics. 3 is Robin. 4 is Task Force Z, and 5 is Tech.
Yeah, I've got a feeling this is going to be very similar. Number 1 is Swamp Thing. Number 2 is Action. Number 3 is Robin. Number 4 is Task Force Z. And number 5 is, well, let's see. It's either Detective, DC versus Vampires.
I mean, I know how much you love DC versus Vampires Killers.
Or Batman Catwoman. I think I gave the highest score out of those to Tech.
Mm-hmm.
That's the exact same as yours, isn't it? Oh well, there you go.
It's alright.
Clearly, though, out of the 7 books I read, there's a bit of a gap between 4 and 5, and the others. So, but hey, that's it's not a bad week though. I had an issue of Swamp Thing in Action. I'm more than happy with those 2 headlining my week. But I'll tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. So coming up, we have Batman 125, and this is the first issue of the new run with Zarsky, so that is really exciting.
Yep.
We also have Dark Crisis issue 2, so that's also huge.
Mm-hmm.
The big event continues. Joker 15's out. DC versus Vampires issue 7. Flashpoint Beyond issue 3, so we'll see how that goes. We got Batman Killing Time issue 5, so that's the penultimate issue of that. We got Batman 89 issue 6, Poison Ivy issue 2, so Matt's definitely going to be looking at that.
Yep.
Batman Beyond Neo Year issue 4, Monkey Prince issue 6, Suicide Squad Blaze issue 3, Multiversity 18 Justice issue 2, Nubia Queen of the Amazons issue 2, and we also have Black Adam and the Justice Society Files Hawkman issue 1. So we know those one-shots are coming out in the run-up to the movie. So that sounds like a lot, but there's a lot of kind of, I don't want to say weird, but there's a lot of minis that we aren't all necessarily reading that are coming out next week. But super excited about the new Batman run and Dark Crisis. So cool stuff. But that is what's coming next week. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you very much to let me scroll. Thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Tradesman, and Alison M. Fordyce. They are all patrons at the Patreon producer tier, but you can support us over there for as little as $1 per month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and help keep all the content, including this podcast, coming. $5 gets you early access to the show. You'll get it on Saturday night whenever it's ready, versus the regular time on Sunday. So if you're interested, go over and have a look. But of course, there's benefits for all the other stuff that we make separate from the Comics podcast. You get bonus episodes of the movie podcast, streams after midnight in the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Go over to Mail Fuzz Movies on YouTube if you want to check them out, or search for them on your podcast feeds. And obviously there's Mail Fuzz TV as well, with all the TV reviews and stuff on YouTube too. So go and have a look at all those things. But otherwise, that is the show. That is us. Oh, guys on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. That was should need to remember that. Do that too. But that is the show. And you know what, Matt? This is the 3rd week in a row we have very consistently come in at just about 2 hours, just around the 2 hour mark.
I like it.
It's never going to last. We're inevitably going to get one of those.
I know, but I like it. I mean, I've been going and playing football in the morning. I get to nap in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I like it.
Just wait till Celeste this week. I'm sure that'll...
Well, that's what happened. That's why we're, the last time we went almost 3 hours because of solicits. Because I made the same telling my wife, oh yeah, it won't take us that long. Boom, solicits dropped.
Oh yeah, you didn't know when you sat down to record.
Nope.
It was a shock to the system, yeah.
It was.
But hey, that is us. That is episode 312. Think about that there. So yes, thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and always remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.